In the Huddle was created to give student athletes, parents and coaches an inside look at the journey through US college sport and all that comes with it. The demands, the experiences, the excitement and the opportunities available to our student athletes from around the world. Study and Play USA facilitates a comprehensive, customised approach for student athletes and families for their whole journey, from their high school preparation years right through to US college graduation.
Welcome to this very special episode of In the Huddle. We're sitting down with a retired college coach, but not just any coach. He is one of the college system's longest standing coaches with over 660 career wins, 12 conference championships, 17 NCAA tournament appearances, and plenty of other highlights. And what's even more special is that this coach was the college coach of Study and Play USA founder Chris Bates. My name is Alexia, and I have the pleasure of reminiscing with Chris and his legendary coach, James Wadley, for a few moments. Joining us from Oklahoma, welcome Coach Wadley.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Coach, how you doing?
Great.
You don't look a day older than when I last saw you.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's not true, but I'm still above the dirt and still kicking, so it's good.
That's a good start. Absolutely.
Well, let's get right into it. Coach, Chris has been telling me stories about his college days for the last 20 years. So I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective on some of those stories as we go today, and perhaps you can maybe set the record straight. But firstly, how's retirement treating you?
Oh, it's good. I miss tennis and athletes and the competition and things like that, but it's been really good. I've been able to watch my 7 grandkids do every kind of sport there is. We've got some of them in baseball and a couple of them in tennis and golf. And, now because I have 3 kids, you've got to go to all the events because they keep score on which ones you go to and which ones you don't, how long you stay. So I've been able to watch a lot of baseball, a little bit of tennis, a little bit of golf and enjoy myself. And of course, I like to fish and hunt and do things and be active. I can't sit around. I've got a couple of little businesses that I run too. So it just keeps me energetic and keeps me going.
Good. Sounds good.
Good to hear.
And I suppose that college coaching and recruiting has changed quite a bit from when you started and when you finished in recent years. Can you tell us what are some of the biggest changes you saw over that period in college recruiting? Well,
the biggest changes is they've got bigger budgets for recruiting than they did. And of course, television and the computer age has changed everything. When Chris came, I probably showed him pictures of some other facilities instead of my facilities. Now they can get on the computer and see exactly what you have, and that's kind of depressing. Showing the porta potties at Oklahoma State wasn't a good thing. So
those are the days.
That's changed, and then I told them I was building a new facility every year too, which didn't quite happen sometimes. So you have to be a little bit more truthful in recruiting today than you did before. And it's worldwide recruiting. You can't go. Everybody finds out about good players. It's harder to find good players that don't know the difference between UCLA and Oklahoma State. They know it's a college program that's going to let them come and get an education and play the sport they love. And the sun shines every once in a while, so it's harder to recruit the best players sometimes to come to the Midwest instead of Florida, Texas, California, where they all know the sun shines and the major sports tennis players are located in those regions. But the assistant coaches now, pretty much everyone has a full-time assistant coach, which really does an awful lot of the recruiting that one coach did for many, many years. And they do a good job. Now they have a volunteer coach too, which I had a 5th year guy for a while. And then finally I was able to get an assistant coach in a part salary jobs, for a few years there at the end, which was good. But recruiting it's kind of like shaving. You better do a little bit every day or you look really bad. You have that growth on your chin, like Chris does. So you've got to keep after it and get after it every day to compete. And there's no secrets. And with Twitter and everything else, players interested in your school can talk to the players on your team through the internet and find out whether you're a good coach, a bad coach, a terrible coach, or whatever. And sometimes they're trying to protect a position on the team too. They might not tell the kids the correct things either. So it's different, but it's always been a one-on-one deal, selling yourself and selling the school to a player that's going to come thousands of miles across the ocean to live with you for, they all think maybe one semester, but it really ends up 4 and 5 years on a lot of them. Everybody thinks they're 6 months away from turning pro and being on national TV and making millions of dollars. And when they get over here, sometimes that realization, they're playing number 5 and they go, must be the coach. he must have messed up my game somehow. So
it's sounding familiar, Coach. Story, right?
I'm guilty as charged there, Coach. I think I lost my first 6 matches. I think you had me at number. I think you had me at number 1.
It can happen, and everybody's thinking, God, I'm coming over here and playing college tennis. It can't be very good, and everybody thinks they should play one. And then here's this big bad coach writing down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it makes it tough, but that's why you have practices and you can have some matches in practice. But the wars, I never did like challenge matches because the line calling got real tough. Plus their vision got really good and bad. And, you ended up fighting with each other because you wanted to beat each other more than you wanted to beat an opponent out on another school. So it got tough, but finally, when they got to see enough players, they kind of realized where they fit on the team and where they were as far as ranking against other college players. And then they decided that education might be something that I need a little bit more than I thought when I came here. And that usually works out. And I've had a lot of players that played for me. I always told them back when Chris played, if you play for me for 4 years, you can guarantee you can make more than an accountant graduating from Oklahoma State the first year as a teaching pro somewhere, because you'll be the best player in town. And if you've listened to me for 4 years and paid any attention, you know kind of how to teach or how to hit shots, and you can make a living out of this sport. And even if you go back to your country, you're going to play and have enough talent to form a business out of your skills. And that worked really well for a lot of people that came over. Now, some people didn't last the whole 4 years, and some people just didn't want the education and went back home. But an awful lot of them stayed and got their degree here. And a lot of them stayed in the United States and a lot of them went home. It just depends on what happens to everybody. Some of them meet that girl over here that kind of entices them to stay in the United States. And some girls that come over meet guys too. But a lot of them take them back or go to Australia and find that beautiful Australian girl over there too to make their life great. So, it's just...
Well said, Coach. Well said.
That's
well said.
And it's just, it's the same, but it's different. It's on a bigger scale, and coaches are making a lot more now. So the pressure is a lot more. I think the first few years, our athletic director didn't know when our season was and whether we won or not, but now ADs know because they're paying a coach $200,000, $250,000, $500,000 at a few schools around the country. So about tennis anymore, and there's pressure on those coaches to be successful.
Serious business.
It makes it different. It makes a difference. I didn't have a lot of pressure on me. I put a lot of pressure on me, and I put some on the players too, because it was their team and everything there. And it was their responsibility to play the best they could every time they went on the court. And I got unhappy with players that didn't give their all or gave up or didn't hustle or just played stupid sometimes. But I realized that it takes a while to get to where you don't play stupid. I did. I played stupid too, and finally to learn a little bit more about the game and try to take the mistakes out. And you can't hit a running forehand left-handed across court at a severe angle, things like that all the time. You got to hit it back down the middle and give the other guy a chance to miss. And you've got to play with a partner, and you can't roll your eyes and when they miss a shot and things like that. But I was really fortunate with Australians because they're traditionally good team guys. Even though it's an individual sport to a great deal, they were a little more team oriented than some other countries that I've had players. And they also like doubles, which a lot of the other foreign players don't like doubles very much. But the Australians really did play, and they served and volleyed more than other people, which made doubles better for them. And since I was a doubles player, I did better in doubles than I did in singles. We played a lot of doubles, and we practiced a lot of doubles while they were over here too.
Yeah,
Sure did. Remember those days very well.
well,
No, it's good. It's good listening to all that, Coach. Taking me straight down memory lane.
Well, while you're talking about recruiting, do you remember your first memories of meeting Coach?
I remember meeting Coach for the first time. Absolutely. I was playing in a what's called a satellite tournament, semi-pro event, pre-college, and I had some guys that were playing the tournament that were at Oklahoma State, and they mentioned that the coach was coming to watch, and he might come and have a watch of my match. So I remember I played pretty well, actually. So I qualified for the main draw, and then I just remember Coach talking to me after the match. He didn't draw a breath for about 20 minutes, talking about my game and what I could work on, and it was good. I enjoyed that, and then we had lunch with the team and did all those types of things, and it just went from there. But I do remember meeting Coach. He's very much the way he is right now. So very, very got a lot to say, but it's for someone who's been around and already at that point, Coach was already very experienced. So you listen. So I remember that, and I remember sort of starting to, because I was one of the guys that Coach just talked about. I was one of the guys that Coach talked about who probably thought I was better than what I was, and I was going to come for a semester and then get out of there. But then the more I spoke and hung around people that were in college and Coach himself, I felt like, okay, this is something that I should be really looking at long term. But even then, as Coach knows, that wasn't the way it worked for me. I took a couple of attempts for me to realize that college was where I needed to be, but it took me a while. But anyway, I do remember that very well, that first time. And then when I first arrived on campus, Coach picked me up at about midnight from the airport and told me about 1,000 jokes that I can't remember.
They were all clean. They were all clean, sure.
Very, very clean. There was one about Theta Pond, which I remember it wasn't.
Oh, that was bad. That was bad. I remember that one too.
That was a dad joke from way back, but it was good. I enjoyed it. But I do remember that, and it was snowing, and I think we nearly hit a deer on the way home, and it was just a really bizarre first night. And then of course the very next night we had Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State basketball, went triple overtime. Keontae Roberts hit the winning shot, and then all the students stormed the court, and I said, "Man, this place is pretty darn awesome. I think I might stay here for a bit."
And the players that Chris talked to, the players recruit other players too.
Yeah.
I mean, hearing it from me that it's great and everything, but when he hears it from players that are on my team, that it's a good experience and the coach is fair and you'll enjoy the campus, you'll enjoy the events. That means a lot more to an athlete than even coming from the coach or administrators, anyone else. And players, if they want you on their team, it's really important too, that they seek out good players so they'll have a good team. I've had some players that I was interested in, and the players talked to him today. You don't want this guy. You don't want him, even though he's saying all the right things. You don't want him.
Yeah.
And then as a coach, you've got to take their word for it and kind of move away.
So you got each other's backs a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. You got to some, but the Australians would recruit other Australians a lot too, which is good.
Yeah. Well, Coach, what's, I suppose, what do you remember about Chris and his tennis game? When you maybe first saw him and potentially, over that first year at college?
Well, he served and volleyed a lot, and he loved the forehand, and he could do everything. He just made too many errors at first, like every tennis player that comes into college or any young player. They try to hit the biggest shots all the time, and it just doesn't work. I mean, if you can't hit them in practice, you can't be hitting them in a match. You can't change everything. You've got to play like you practice and play within that structure, and Chris didn't do that. He wanted to hit a big serve and a big volley and win every point that way and go on. And if he was down 30-love, well, let's get this game over and I can serve again. He didn't compete as hard when he's on defense as he did on offense, which is normal for most players. And I always told him what will break a guy's back if you come back from 40 love down and then break them, then that can decide the whole match. And and you need to hit more balls, whether it's when you're trying to stay in a match or whatever. Give the other guy an opportunity to screw up, but develop your weapons, whatever they are, whatever your big shots are, but don't neglect your things you don't like to do. Because when an opponent finds out what you don't want to do, that's what you're going to get if they're very good. And if you're smart and y'all are equal opponents, the smarter player is going to win. Playing the correct shots and doing the right thing and moving, hustling and fighting for every point. Because anytime a player's played their best, they're always scrambling and fighting and scratching and doing things like that to win. So if you're that player, that's what I want to see. And getting players to where they give their maximum all the time is tough. Because tennis is so stressful, every point, everything. It's not like you get to take off like you do in soccer and some other sports. You can kind of float over in the background. In tennis, it's every point. You're right there and people are watching and you've got to perform. And when you're stupid, you look stupid. But when you're good, you look good. And you've got to try to look good more than you look stupid, you know. So, but Chris was young and growing, and I obviously got to see the talent there. He had good hands, he had good eyes, he was quick, and I love lefties because they're always fun. They're harder to coach sometimes because they're little freaks in some ways, but you know, it's just different. But I enjoyed lefties a lot, and Chris he had a lot of pride. He didn't like to lose, and that's what a coach really respects, that in players. And you know, he wasn't 6'4" and have a monster serve and just overwhelm people.
Yeah,
he was good at everything. He didn't have any distinct weaknesses. Of course, in his book that he wrote, he said the only thing I looked at was his serve, which I could swear his backhand volley was a little shaky at first, and he worked on all those volleys. Approach shots were a little weak, and
I didn't have enough room in the book.
Short, and you know, typical things that most players come into college with. Chris had. So
yeah, I didn't have enough room in my book to talk about all my.
I understand. I thought, that was the only thing wrong. Chris must have been better than I thought. Serve, you know.
Now, this is the banter that he tells me about in all of his stories between you two.
Well, and Chris always had a good personality, which, you know, makes life a lot easier for coaches and teammates and everything else. You know, he had a quick smile and everything else. And he tried to be a good example when he got a little bit older for the other players too, and help them when he could. And that's what tennis is all about. And that's what's special about it. You develop a bond, and where you won or lost and you're over there, you know, cheering for the other guys that are on the team, trying to win the match and everything like that. And then you get a little team loyalty and a team pride going. And Chris is really good with that. He didn't like to lose, and that makes it good, makes it fun.
Yeah, our son is exactly the same. Doesn't like to lose. So I've got two of them in the house, Coach. So you can feel sorry for me.
Good. That's good, buddy. Better than have that in their head down all the time and just not competing. You know.
Very true. Very true.
I've always had kids. I didn't have one that just sat over in the corner. My kids were kind of like me. They're all over the place going. And I like that. I want them to be moving and doing things, whether they're doing some things wrong or right. I just want them active and happy and smiling and having a good time. And today, with those things that they do, makes it a little bit more difficult. Trying to get them to play tennis when they can have a world on that screen that's unbelievable. It worries me about our younger society of kids that they're not going to be outside. They're not going to do as much. Of course, this world may be getting where we're not going outside and we're just doing things and remotely and everything. But I worry about kids not getting the experiences that Chris had and not being out on their own a little bit, where the pressure gets on you and teaches you about life, about dealing with people and authority and all those things that they need, instead of having mom and dad there protecting them all the time and them playing video games all the time. So
I think that's kind of why I wrote the book, actually, Coach, because all my lessons I learned were on reflection. During college, I was too immature to realize what was all happening. But it's only when you go back and then you start imparting your experience onto other people and helping them, you just start to self-reflect. You say, gee, I actually, the biggest thing I got out of college was nothing to do with tennis, really, in the end. It was all the other things that you said, like things that can go wrong and
how you deal with that.
Yeah. So yeah, getting away from my family, which was a very close family, probably a fairly protective family, was good for me. It didn't mean I didn't love them, but I think I needed to do it. So, but yeah, no, you're right. It's all good points there.
And you couldn't talk to them like you can today either. I mean, you can communicate so much better with relatives and family, and now with all the tennis, people can watch the matches in Australia, and it's amazing how nice those things are now. Where Chris, he'd get a phone call once a week or every couple of weeks, and it was expensive, and he was trying to eat out of a cereal box in the summer most of the time trying to survive, but it's a lot better for kids today because with Zoom now, it's even better than it was before. So they can communicate a lot better. Students that come to Australia, from Australia to the United States to play tennis or any sport, they're not so far away from home that Chris was further away from home at the time. Now they can still get that security and still gripe about the coach to their parents a little bit, at home. It's always the coach's fault. When you win, it's the players. When you lose, it's the coach. And that's part of it, and that's fine.
My first semester, coach, it was all your fault. It was the wind. It was the courts. It was everything. And anything but me.
I said, one time I made a list of about 100 things, and I gave them to all the players. Like, oh, it's the wind. Well, you were on my case yesterday. Just all excuses you have. And I said, just tell me a number. You don't have to say all of it. Just say 14, a little 26, a little 19. That made it a lot easier because the excuses are everywhere. They're easy to find. If you want them, they're there. So I made it a little bit easier for them. They got a big laugh out of that, I think.
Yeah.
Do you find that gets less the longer they're in college? Do you think that's, strong in a freshman, and then as they progress, they start to learn that, there's more things. It's more things to it, I suppose.
Well, it has good and bad because it kind of messes with their dreams. Players come over here and they honestly expect to really blossom because they're growing older to be on the pro tour and making a lot of money. And when you come over here and if you're getting beating practice and matches, and that kind of destroys a little bit of that. And then they've got to start looking to see, hey, wait a minute, if I don't have tennis, if I'm not going to make millions, I better figure out something else I'm going to be able to do, get a business degree or accounting or engineering. Anything that you want is here. If you want it, it's right there. But it takes work and discipline just the same way it does tennis. But if you manage your social life, you can get the best of all the worlds. You can have a good social life, fun, do things. You can get great academics, as good as you want, and then you can have good tennis too. If you manage your time well and put your priorities straight, you can really have a full life of everything. But if you don't, if you leave one of them out, then it gets a little bit more tenuous and tougher. So I try to get the players to do it all. And that doesn't mean go out drinking and partying and all the time like that, because if you do any one of them over, I've had guys, I said, God, you guys are spending too much time in the classroom. You're studying way too much. We lost this match. What's the deal? They laugh, some of them. But,
yeah.
I said, what are you here for? To get an education? But you want them to not overload on any one of the three. And if they're going to overload on them, it probably better be the education part. Yeah. But I've had guys stay all night and the next day just dragging. I said, hey, that's just poor planning. If you had to stay up all night to study for a test, you should have patterned it out where you didn't have to do that. You're hurting your team because you didn't manage your time correctly. And of course they go, yeah, coach, well, but still, I always tell them, this is the greatest time of your life. You're 18 to 22. Gee, this is as good as it gets. You get to get an education, have campus life, and play tennis, and go to states and places that you would never go, and all paid for. That's going to change abruptly.
I'm not silly, coach. Chris tells me that meeting me and having our son is the best time of his life, but I'm no fool.
I think that's probably good. That's the best time of my life too.
Yeah.
I don't know, with her looking at me, giving me those dirty looks, well, after the baby's born, it's not good, but
Yeah.
it's great. It is great.
Well, every time we come back your way, he tries to get recruited again, but there's no masters for that, and he's a bit broken these days, so it won't be happening.
You're the coach now. You have to understand. You're in charge.
Yeah.
Same way in my house. I'm not in charge. I get a vote sometimes. Of course, I had 2 girls early when Chris was here. I was outvoted every day of my life. The only place I had any power was at the tennis court, not at home. For sure.
Fair point.
Well, I've got a question for both of you, and I'm going to ask you first, Coach. So, and it touches on what you just spoke about, was the holistic experience of college life. And I'm going to talk about the time that Chris was there specifically. Of if you could tell us some of, one of your fondest memories of an off-court sort of experience with the team, and then an on-court one as well. And I'm going to ask Chris the same.
The teams, when you get 74 years old, they kind of run together,
Yeah.
The stories might be different, but it may be a team that he wasn't even on,
Yeah.
I mean, we've been on road trips in the van. Is a really good coaching time. That's when I did a lot of coaching, was in the van, if I could get them to listen. After a match, whether we won or lost, we went over things, what we did wrong or what we did right, and we did a lot of things like that. But we've stopped at service stations and gone in and get snacks and get back in the van and start out, and someone look around, where's Chris? Or where's Bill? Well, isn't he here? Nope, we left him 30 miles back. He was in the bathroom at the service station, so the Quick Trip or whatever it was. So, that. And we had some good arguments in the car about religion, politics, life, girl-boy relationships, all kinds of interesting things.
Country music, there was a lot of debate about that.
When we lost, I'd turn that sucker up pretty loud and made them listen to it too, on the way home. So a lot of things like that. And you had guys that didn't get along sometimes. And they weren't, on the team. They didn't like to hit with each other. They didn't like to play doubles with each other, whatever. And I always told them, I want to put out little fires. When it gets real big fires, I don't have the skills maybe to take care of it, but I want to take care of it when it's small, where we can talk it out and work it out and, make it where it'll go away if we can. And we've had some of those in the van, and where the whole team would kind of, old lazy butt over there is letting us down, or, he's staying out too late, or you come together and kind of iron some things out. And it's not fun sometimes. It's a critical time, because players will be more critical of each other than I will be of them sometimes. So, but we've had some interesting road trips, and staying in hotels are a little shaky at the time. We've had a few of those, and La Cockroachin, we called them La Cockroachin every once in a while. And we ran out of gas a few times, not many, but a few. The windshield wipers wouldn't work in a rainstorm, and I'm out there doing this. We've been around the roads a few times. So I've put more van miles on than any coach in the history of Oklahoma State.
Oh, no doubt.
We drove the van to practice 3 or 4 times a week during the winter. We drove to most of our matches. What was the longest trip we had with you, Chris? Did we go to Corpus?
In the van. Corpus was a van trip. It's about 8-9 hours.
Oh, it's learning. That's 14, probably 14.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, that was awesome. No, we loaded up on some Jim Carrey funny videos and movies, and then the rest of the trip we were listening to your country music or something. So,
well, now they charter buses now for the teams to go. It's pretty nice now. I would love to sit back instead of, white knuckling, and when the wind's blowing, and one time when we got in a snowstorm and had a tornado at the same time. We saw the tornado and had a snowstorm at the same time in Lubbock, Texas.
Out 2 different windows at one side.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Chris pulls the with some of our student athletes that we work with. Back in my day, he's at that age now where he can say the back in my day, and it's to do with those road trips. He talks about, a couple of years back when we came and visited you and saw the new facilities. You know, that's when he talks now of, well, back in my day, you know, in the winter, we had to drive an hour and a half to practice every night. There were no indoor courts.
6 or 7 days a week.
That's it.
And
he
we
talks
went
of it as
when
the
the weather was
best time.
bad because we had no choice. We went when the weather's bad, and the AD didn't know how bad it was. Thank goodness, he probably wouldn't have let us go. And then we just couldn't do well if you're not practicing. So
Yeah,
it was interesting. But you know, you had 8 guys, usually 7 or 8 guys, sometimes 6, depends on injuries and everything. But they're in close quarters all the time. So they had to learn to live with each other and the coach yelling at them and saying things to them maybe that no, they never heard from any other coach before, being critical of you. And no one likes that. And sometimes I might have been a little bit colorful with some comments that I made that I wouldn't be able to get away with today if I was still coaching. But
I enjoyed it all. I think it's all part of getting out of your comfort zone, to be honest. But, you know, at the time, yeah, you're right. I didn't like it, but it was, you know, you often don't like what's good for you sometimes. So I certainly look back on it, but I just got
to see Chris coaching now. Sometime I know he's coached a lot. I'd like to see him talking to some of those players sometimes and correcting things, and then giving him that look and stuff.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
No, I've definitely been on the other side, and then again, that further respect for coaches that I've had in the past, because you just, you know, it's not easy. Very rewarding, but it's
I always loved it when their face lit up when they did something correctly and that ball went just like they wanted it to, and they actually changed something in a grip or a backswing or follow through or something and made them better. And boy, they just glowed for a little bit. That's what was great about coaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then they forgot how it happened. They did it all on their own, of course. I didn't help them at all. They did it all by themselves. But, you know, that's what it is, like Chris, you know.
Oh, stop
That's
it.
the best. Well, I'm now going to turn it on Chris and say, what are some of your best memories on and off the court from your time at OSU?
Well, I think, yeah, obviously the on-court, we were lucky. My roommate was the best player in America in singles and doubles. So Pavel Kudinac from Czech Republic, great guy as well. And we had a team of Aussies who had all been at college for a while. So I was the youngest on the team, and we had a lot of good wins. But my best memory was after those guys left, and I was probably one of the senior guys on the team. We went to Seattle, coach, and knocked off Tennessee.
Yeah, that was a big win. They were 2 in the country.
That's right.
Still today, that's the biggest upset in indoor men's tennis at the National Indoor. A 15 seed beating a number 2 seed. It's never happened since then. So that was pretty good. That
was a very good memory, and especially because a lot of the opposition were from the home country as well, including the coach. So it was a rival that was transported across the Pacific Ocean. That one, but it was that was the best memory on court. But I've got to tell you a very funny story. You may not remember this, coach, but I think I might have put it in the book. You probably read it, but it was we were playing Cal Berkeley in the for the right to get into the Sweet 16, I think, of nationals in my second last year. Maybe it was my last year, can't remember. But anyway, we lost and we didn't play well. But
they were good. They were good too.
They were very good. But my match unfortunately ended in a pretty bad way with having full body cramps. And anyway, the team, we went to Subway for lunch afterwards, and I managed to ease the cramps down. But by the time I got into the Subway again, that the whole team had to lay me out across all the yellow tables of Subway and massage me and tipping salt and Gatorade down my throat.
Pickle juice too, I think.
Pickle juice. Oh, I took everything. It was just,
that's right.
There was not one muscle in my body that was working and not contracting. So anyway, it was peak hour lunchtime, and
he's laying on the table.
Yeah, laying on the table, and there's a lot of people that aren't particularly enjoying their lunch right now, into this kid groaning. And then I got chaired out of the Subway, and again, you got this young little family walking in for a nice pleasant lunch, and they see this kid with no shirt on getting carried out, and then coach just coach just happened to say, "Don't eat the meatball." And
that sounds like me. But,
said it to the family, and then that set me off. The whole team's laughing. I've got really bad stomach cramps as a result, and took me about another hour to settle that down. But that was one of my funny off-court memories of coach. Not funny at the time, but that was something I always like to tell that story. But coach, I'm keen to get your thoughts on how you reckon the actual game of tennis has changed over your career, especially in college. You obviously coached some awesome players who had successful college careers, and some went on to bigger and better things on tour. Can you talk about how the game's changed, and then maybe just this is your chance to give us a bit of a brag of some of those players as well that have went on to do some good things. But yeah, how do you think the game's changed mainly?
The game obviously has gotten away from the serve and volley an awful lot over the years. It's more of an all-court game with mixed in a little serve and volley every once in a while. The fitness level has just become incredible. The athletic things that tennis players can do, the equipment is, crazy good. Strings are really good. You can control the ball a lot more. You can hit a lot harder. You can do many more things with the ball, keep it on the racket a little bit longer. The serves, the velocity's really gotten up. The second serves are so much deeper than they ever were before. The depth of shots is so much greater. The balls hit this far from the baseline all the time. They don't hit the net hardly at all, the great players. They just don't. They take the net completely out of the game. They play down the middle a lot more than we did. We were always trying to go cross-court or down the line. The really good players will hit the ball down the middle enough so they don't give the other player angles like we did before. We didn't do that very much. We approached some down the middle. Of course, now people don't approach much. The approach shot is kind of a lost art. Underspin is a lost art too. Slice. They're used defensively more now. They're not used at all offensively. If you don't have a really good support group with the great food, the handlers, the coaches, and the travel partners, and the hitting partners, and all these things, it's really difficult. You can't just do it. I remember I was at the U.S. Open, and Sam Groff was sleeping on a roll-out bed on the floor of someone else's apartment. And he was a pretty good player, but financially it just gets really tough for those players that aren't just making it strong. You've got to be exceptional. And you can't just be exceptional at one shot anymore. Like Ivo Vinovic had a huge serve and he could survive. Now you can't survive with one shot. You've got to have the whole package to be able to have a lot of success. The balls have even changed. They wear out so quick. We used to open tennis balls and use them for a week and stuff more, but now it's one day and they're big as a balloon, which I think is really bad. I don't know what stuff they put on it to make them go bad. It's kind of like razor blades. I've heard that they put chemicals on them to make them get rough. You could have one razor blade and shave for 10 years with technology, but they don't want that. They want it to break so you can get another one. So same way I think with tennis balls. And string has gotten really good. Of course, we used gut some a long time ago, and now no one uses gut. Well, some of the big time guys do, I guess, and they go through 6-7 rackets a match and stuff. It's just amazing. The cost has gone up. The travel costs have really gone up. The equipment costs have gone up. The lower players aren't getting much money to survive on, which I blame the Federers and Nadals and all that, and the public wants to see those guys. They don't want to see the guy that's just barely making it to the first round, which is sad, because to me the best matches at the U.S. Open and Wimbledon are those first round matches and those qualifying matches. I enjoy them more than watching. I wouldn't walk across the street to watch some of these guys play now. I mean, just but
I'm a bit the same, Coach. The day one in a major or the last day of qualifying, these are the guys playing for their lives.
There you go.
You love watching a desperate match. Whereas, as you say, full respect for those players. They're the best of all time, some of those guys. But I'm the same. I wouldn't, I've been around tennis a long time. I have no desire to go watch them play necessarily, and people will be surprised at that. But I just get more enjoyment out of watching the desperate guys.
I do too. And
Yeah.
guys come back to me and say, well, but the pressure's on those guys. I said, you got 60 million in the bank. There's no pressure. There's no pressure anywhere if you got 60 million in the bank. If you got 50 in the bank and you got to stay 3 more days, that's pressure down at the lower deals. Those guys, they win another title, yippee doo dah, but they don't ever have to worry about anything the rest of their life. The top 5 guys or 6 guys, but and that doesn't appeal to me as much. Even though Federer is such an unbelievable person to watch play. He's just amazing. And of course, the tenacity and of Connors and playing with that racket, he may have been the best player that ever played, playing with a badminton racket where everybody else was playing with other stuff. But I like to watch the gritty. I like to watch McEnroe because you never knew what the heck he was going to do.
Absolutely.
And he had a lot of pride in doubles and still played doubles, which I have a lot of respect for him in that way. Didn't have much respect for him in any other way because he's a jerk, and so was Connors. But they were total jerks. But people want to see total jerks sometimes. It's marketing. They don't want to see the Samprases that just do things right and just play good and going down the road. They want to see people blow up. And I remember I talked to McEnroe one time, and after he played at Wimbledon, and his deal where he knocked all the cups off of the table and called the umpire an idiot or something, or he said, yeah, it was a $10,000 fine and $10 million worth of publicity. And he was absolutely right. He said, I was on the front page, the sports page of every TV in the world, and it cost me $10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works,
Yep.
And that still works today. Sensationalism still works. But I told him, I said, you guys did more for players because umpires and tournament directors used you to not let any of those other players do any of that stuff. So it stopped all the craziness in the junior tennis because you guys were such idiots.
fair way of looking at it. It's good. Coach, just very quickly, with just of the players that you've coached, so you have, Pavel was my old roommate. He was #1 American. Then I know you had a couple of others. You just want to quickly maybe tell us your top 3 players you've ever coached.
Nedvesov got to be 49 in the world. We've never had a player except Lori McNeil in the girls' ranks that has done anything like that got to, he's ranked 49 in the world and playing in the U.S. Open and winning rounds and things like that. He's playing Davis Cup. He beat Federer and them in a Davis Cup match in doubles and won a big match, beat Chilich in the finals of a Davis Cup match. And so as far as world recognition, Alex, and of course he stayed here 4 years too. And Pavel was only here 2 years, but Pavel won the National Indoor Singles, the National Indoor Doubles, the National Clay Courts. His second year here, the Big 12 both years at #1 singles and #1 doubles. That year we were seated #1 in singles and doubles at the NCAA tournament. But Martin Dvorak, his doubles partner, had a rib that was bugging him and he just couldn't play, so he lost there. And then Pav was playing by John Roddick at Georgia in the quarterfinals. And Roddick, they were barking dogs and everything at Georgia. And we were just a side match with all the things going on, and Pav lost in a tight match to VCU 6-4 in the third, or he was the best player in the country. And those two stand out. I've had some other guys that did well. Mark Johnson, who won the Big 12, Big 8 every year he was there. Peter Mallett, an Australian, won the Big 8, whatever position he played 8 times. Different things like that. And Chris, of course, is the best left-hander I ever had, obviously.
Yeah, I've got a good friend of mine, Graham Thames. I know he's probably want to have a shout-out to you. So
Yeah, Graham was great. He was one of my first Australians.
Well, Coach, we'd just like to, thank you for your time. It's been amazing to catch up with you, to have a little trip down memory lane. Always entertaining. And personally, from my point of view, the impact that yourself and Oklahoma State University and the college experience has had on Chris and our lives has been incredible. We now have a 10-year-old son who Skypes with his friends from Stillwater, so with, Chris' friends' kids. So, it's gone full circle. So we we look forward to catching up with you. Hopefully next time we're over there, and
Please do.
probably you're due down here too.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank Chris, helping making me be a better coach, and all the other Australians that have come over across the ocean to play for Oklahoma State and for me. I really appreciated it, and they were great players, and I really enjoyed every one of them.